So we're here to talk about this historic moment. Joe Biden selected Kamala Harris as his running mate. Nicole Giammi, what do you think about that?
I'm excited about the announcement of Kamala Harris as the running mate with Joe Biden. I think given everything that we're experiencing in our current political scene with our current leadership, I'm excited for what I think this Biden-Harris ticket will hold and offer for the people. So I'm excited about it. I think in the days to come, of course, we will, as in all politics, there will be the bashing, but in the bashing, in the fight that will ensue in terms of cross the parties and so forth, I think we'll see just a lot of the real intentional beauty, commitment, and work that I think that Biden and Harris ticket will offer up for the American people as an option. So I'm excited about it.
Have you heard anything from your friends and family about the pick?
Sheer excitement. So, as far as those, just in terms of that, it's just excitement because, just I guess my own personal thing. I think certainly when President Obama became our 44th president, that was exciting for everyone. And then now that we have Biden, who was his vice president, running, and he's picked Kamala Harris to be his running mate, one of the things that I think I and a lot of people are excited about, history just dictates when you bring really smart, strong women to the table. Beautiful, not just beautiful, but just monumental things have happened to move the country, to move the world forward, and to move. And one of the things I think about Kamala, something I heard her say, she has a fighting spirit. And so we've had some great women leaders in our past history, and I think she will represent that. And I'm excited to see. I think that energy will be infectious for Joe Biden, and I think just the right balance. So I'm excited to see all the energy that she's going to bring, and just to show the kind of leadership that women can bring when given the opportunity. And as a representation of what's already happening around the world, women are leading in other countries and other places in major ways, and it's time for it to happen in the U.S.
Yes, and people seem very excited. Biden did receive a lot of pressure. We don't know what he would have done had he not received that pressure. Maybe he would have made the same selection. There were some other really impressive candidates. Natasha, you mentioned that your daughter liked someone else, but she's happy about the selection as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So that was, certainly big news in our household. Yesterday, I was, over the top that Kamala was selected as Joe Biden's VP, and it was my daughter who announced it to me. I was on a Zoom call per usual, and she let me know that Kamala had been chosen. Her position as a rising Spelman freshman, as a millennial, as a very conscious young lady, was that she felt Stacey Abrams was a more progressive candidate and fellow Spelmanite. And so she was in her camp and hoping that she was selected. So while disappointed that her primary candidate wasn't selected, I think she's just overjoyed that there's a Black woman on the ticket, and presumably she will also be our, when they win this election, she will also be our nominee for the next president. So that just gives my heart such promise and hope. And, I look at my own children, much like Nicole shared with President Obama. It is just an incredible achievement. So having been raised, my father was born in 1926. He came through segregation. through Chicago. My mother was born in Texas. And so our family history is woven and threaded through this country and its challenges, as well as moments like this where it just, it feels so great to be acknowledged and recognized.
And Natasha, you're right there in Washington, D.C., where all the politics happen. Have you heard anything from other people about this candidate and what it means to them?
I have. Yesterday, I was, I text messages started flooding in. I'm on a few different channels with other African American women, including my own mother. And, there's just so much excitement and thrill. If you look at Kamala Harris's experience, she has done it all, right? From the municipal side all the way into the Senate, and everything in between, being a DA, being the Attorney General. She is a champion for the environment, which is, it's the environment and the climate are areas that are overlooked when it comes to people of color, African Americans. We are disproportionately affected by the climate, and I'm very happy to have Kamala in the office to champion that. She's done so much in California to be an advocate and to see change through. There are folks at work who I talked to today who are not African American and not people of color, who are also very excited about this election. And so that's encouraging. My hope is that they take that to the booth when they're in there. Yeah, lots of excitement. I've talked to neighbors as well. I went on a walk at 7:30 this morning with a neighbor who also was very excited.
Okay, we have a Hampton University student with us, and that's Sarah Avery. Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about your feelings about Kamala Harris as a pick?
I'm sort of siding with Natasha's daughter in the feeling that I wanted a more progressive candidate. I think a lot of my friends have that feeling as well. I think for us, it's kind of like a double blow because we didn't want Biden initially on the ticket either. And so to kind of have that second blow, it's upsetting to us, but we understand the significance of having a Black woman on the ticket. And so despite our feelings about politics and moderates and progressives and things like that, we are excited that there's a Black woman on the ticket, and obviously we will be behind them and support them. But like I said, it's just a little bit of disappointment on our end because we did want somebody with a more progressive agenda, because we thought, well, if Biden is a moderate, then he can have a more progressive VP that could help those progressive policies get pushed through that we favor a lot.
Well, was there a candidate that you would have preferred?
As vice president pick, Stacey Abrams as well, just a more progressive person and a lot less of a moderate.
Okay. We have, let me say that Sarah, you are in Raleigh, North Carolina. And Dr. Rosalind Sibley, you are in Yorktown, Virginia.
That's right.
So how do you feel, Rosalind, about the VP pick?
Well, I am just so relieved, I guess I should say, because, they kept us in suspense for a long time. And I guess that was, by some accounts, a strategic move to keep up the hype. But I was just so glad that Vice President Biden selected someone who everybody seems, well, except for some of the opposition we've heard here on this panel, for the most part, everybody seems to be satisfied with the pick. and understands that it was a strategic move. She's so well qualified in the judicial branch and now in the Senate, being the only Black woman in the Senate. That was a more kind of, I don't know what you would say, what someone would expect, now not traditional so much as just the expected hierarchy that things go. So I think it was the right choice, and I think most people are pleased with the choice.
Okay. Um, Now, what are you hearing there on the ground in Hampton Roads, Virginia?
Well, basically, our main goal is to defeat Trump. And so that is the main goal. So I understand people may have other choices or other first choices or second choices. In fact, I would say, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you.
I'm not saying anything.
Okay, all right. So therefore, the Democrats in Virginia and the NAACP in Virginia, I think we're unified in our main goal in the effort to defeat Trump. And so our objective is to support the main candidates that can do that. And I think that we have the best ticket. And, just to share a personal story with you, as I said, I'm on a sabbatical, and it's kind of tongue in cheek, but because I have just celebrated my 40th reunion from medical school. So I was in active practice for 30 years. And so right now I'm in a kind of a transition, but I did attend my 40th reunion from medical school almost a year ago, last August. And coincidentally, at the banquet, our class reunion banquet, one of my classmates asked me, "What do y'all like about Joe Biden?" And so I simply said, because white men will vote for him. In the same vein of we've got to beat Trump.
Now, you have to say where you went to medical school.
Oh, of course. The University of Mississippi in my hometown of Jackson. So I guess you can figure out who was asking that question. And so then he went on to ask, well, what is it about Kamala Harris that you all like? And I told him, I said, I know a lot of Black men that like Kamala Harris, including my husband.
Okay, well.
So, we just we had to break it down. I mean, this is like what they used to call in my fellowship, like a fireside chat. That's what I figured we're doing, right? And so we're just being real. And so that is, a year ago, those were the two main candidates that were being talked about. This is when she was on, running for president. But I think she understands, and she understood then, that being vice president is a nice consolation prize. And I also think that we need to respect her for running the race. The fact that she was in there, she's been vetted, she's been tried by fire. She has made sure that, she has adhered to all of the processes and procedures that are necessary for someone to be qualified to be president. And the fact that she can, I think, bring the fact that she can be president the next day if need be. I think that she also brings that.
I think that was a good point that Natasha made that, next year or during the next election, she will be first on the ticket. So,
That's
I mean,
correct. She will be the front runner for the Democratic Party.
that's important. So, Mr. Garland Burton, uh, the one man that we have here with us today, would you mind sharing your views with us about uh, the VP pick, Kamala
Sure,
Harris?
sure. I'm pleased. You know, I heard someone say that something really good earlier today. Said that women have to win on their competence and accomplishments. White men can run and win on their potential. And so here in Kamala Harris, like the good doctor said, she went through the vetting process, which is no cakewalk. And her family went through it as well. So you're talking about a record that is, hopefully bulletproof. Um, I think she is, you know, at first, when the world was first introduced to Kamala Harris on the campaign trail, she appeared to be, and I think it's just in her voice, appeared to be a little weak. But since, as a senator and watching her through the hearings with some of the criminals in Washington, D.C., she's tough as nails and smart and a fighter. I think she's going to be a great vice president. My first choice was Susan Rice, just based on Susan Rice's resume, Stanford grad, international law, former secretary of the UN, Security Council under Obama. Just she is qualified right now to be president more than anybody that's running, in my opinion. Go read her bio. But Kamala Harris as well, with her law background, it's just an extraordinary pick, and it's historic. If nothing else, it's historic. There's never been a Black woman governor in the history of the United States. We've only had, one or two Black male governors in the history of this country. And so for the young lady, I talked to a lot of young people, and when we were young, that same progressive, aggressive leaning we had, it's like the world is too slow, they're not progressive enough. But then over time, you quickly realize this country is center right, center left. If you are ever going to win, you got to drag this country. It moves at a glacial pace, and you got to drag them kicking and screaming against their will into the future. So it's one step at a time. I know my generation fought like hell to get Kamala Harris's in jobs such as Attorney General. Now that she's Attorney General, let's not hate her for accomplishing something that my generation worked hard to get her in. You dig what I'm saying? And so I want young people to keep their passion, to keep their focus, but realize we do have to win. Biden is a good pick because some white people will vote for him. And my first choice would have been somebody else as well. But the key is to win. So
just to bring up the types of things that may serve as what Republicans may bring up against Senator Harris and Vice President Biden. People, the whole thing that she came against him in the debate about his stance on busing. Mm-hmm. And the fact that, I guess they were trying to say he has some racist tendencies.
That is.
There's also the Clarence Thomas thing. Yeah.
Well, he wasn't quite that bad, but you know, the fact that his office, his Senate office, was the former Senate office of Congress of Senator John Stennis of Mississippi, who was a staunch racist. And Stennis and Eastland were some of the most notorious segregationists. And so Biden gave some complimentary remarks about him at his
Oh, yeah.
celebration that they were having, and he also was against busing as a way to desegregate the schools, which you know I believe that she should have come against him like she did about that. I think that was good, and it was, you know, it was an airing out. You know, you say, you know, we need to discuss. They need to acknowledge their wrongdoing in the past and admit to it. And I think he has done that. You know, I think overcame his maybe sensitivity about the fact that she embarrassed him on national TV.
Right.
And went ahead and was big enough to select her. And also the fact that people have changed. You know, people, even racists, can evolve in their thinking. And even though there's really no indication that Joe Biden has ever been anywhere near the racist that we are complaining about here today, even some of them have come around. And John Stennis was one of them. You know, I guess as he saw the fact that he was about to meet his maker, you know, even he softened on his views about race. And the thing that they may have to say about Kamala Harris, and you know more about this than I do, or something about her record as being a DA in San Francisco.
Right.
Some of the progressives have been complaining about the fact that she wasn't progressive enough or something like that. But you know, we just had to keep our eye on the prize. You know, that's all. I don't know enough of the facts, but we have to keep our eye on the prize.
And one more thing, perspective is key. I heard someone describe Joe Biden in 1970 as the Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez of his day. And so that'll give you some perspective for someone who may be younger than me. Here's the story. You know, my father passed away in 2016, and this kind of ties into our discussion tonight because, you know, Dad was in the Korean War, 1956. When he graduated, he went to school at North Carolina Central and was working in the post office. And in 1960, President Kennedy signed an executive order for the first time requiring federal agencies to begin taking affirmative steps to recruit African-American employees. At that time, in 1960, I think out of 2 million federal government workers in the civilian workforce, not counting military, out of 2 million federal employees, only 27 were African-American, and most of those were maids and butlers in the White House.
Wow.
And so because of that executive order, my father applied for a position with the U.S. Department of Labor and was hired. And that stroke of Kennedy's pen gave my father that little middle-class job where he was able to send his Black children to college, change the trajectory of our family. And this is, you know me, Angela, I've always been passionate about this. It's those little acts in politics that have major impacts on people's lives. So I'm living kind of, and Dad used to, you know, remind us of that history. The reason I am here is because of an executive order. And sometimes I think our children these days, they feel like those kinds of things, what's happening in politics is so far away and so disconnected from their lives. But that's a real example in my life that I'm always happy to share with people. And the reason I think that's connected with Kamala in the discussion, I mean, I saw her a little while ago talking about her experience growing up in Berkeley with her mother and father who were civil rights involved in the civil rights protests, and how that shaped her. And her mother challenged her that when you see something wrong, well, what are you going to do about it? And she took that on and became an attorney, and fought for justice her whole life. The things we tell our kids matter, and it helps to shape them. We got to implant those seeds. And I'm going to encourage everybody. Is anybody here an AKA, by the way?
Well, we have some Greeks.
Yes.
Okay.
We have Greeks.
So yeah, Nicole is an AKA. Uh-huh.
I know you guys are very proud, and I've heard that come up as an important. I understand that her DC network is going to provide tremendous benefits to her.
And while I think it's important to talk about, the backing that she will have with AKA, but I think it's not just across AKA. I think across all the Greek sororities, fraternity, I think the Divine Nine, across that, you have all of that backing and support, because at the end of the day, we all understand what it means to have her in this role, and what it means for a lot of the work that we go about, for the agendas and the work that we've made a lifetime out of the civil rights movement and so many other things. So yes, while I take great honor and pride that she is an AKA, is so much more than that, and it goes across all of it.
Here, here, coming from a Delta.
Mhm. That's right. And I'm glad
Awesome, yes.
I'm glad that you did bring up that point, because the AKAs have been amazing fundraisers just for historically Black colleges in general.
If I could make one point as far as what Kamala Harris's selection means to Black America in general, because I mean, you hear about 6 degrees of separation. Well, it's my contention that within the Black certain segments anyway, there's about 1.5 degrees of separation. And so, and then to talk about Senator Harris's relationship to Howard, I was reading that she graduated from Howard in 1986. And at that time, I was assistant professor of radiology in Howard University College of Medicine at the Howard University Hospital. So, I did not know her, of course, but we were there at the same time, and we were pretty much there for the same reasons, that coming out of the type of segregated background that I came from, and a lot of first integrating schools, and a lot of her background, she was one of the first or only Blacks, or few Blacks in her environment growing up, and she wanted to come to Howard for that Black experience. And that was the same thing that I was longing to do. And once I got there, it was actually like a culture shock for me. I could not believe it. Once I finished medical school and I went to Howard for my internship, and I was at the Mecca, and I was in Washington, D.C., where I have several relatives, and some of them in the legal profession as well. So, the commonalities, just people talk about how her story resonates with so many people. But for me, I see myself in her, and even to the point of protesting apartheid with Randall Robinson in Trans Africa. I was out there on those streets of DC too. And so, she just seems to be one of the same kind of people that we are. And we are just so glad that we're going to have our voices elevated. And, I like one of the things that someone said about Congressman John Lewis, is that You know, he went from what young people do best is protesting and you know, being fearless and being activists out there in the streets, and then took that to the halls of Congress, and in so doing was able to be a bridge between the protesters and the presidents. And so she's just taking it to the next level. I'm just glad to see it.
So thank you all for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank
Have
you.
this conversation again soon, conversation between all of us. It's been great.